And I think we'll start here in the Law Enforcement Center conference room. So Christine Hewsome, Wright County Board.
Derek Fetch, County Board.
Suber Jean, Assistant County Administrator.
Matt Treitler, Wright County Sheriff's Office. Frank Paquita, IT.
All right. So then we're going to go ahead and go down the list, and we have maybe Senator Anderson, if you'd like to unmute and introduce yourself.
I didn't know that I was muted.
Oh.
Well, I'm Senator Bruce Anderson, and glad to be here, a part of the Wright County Legislative Priorities session, and look forward to hearing what the commissioners have to say and others regarding Wright County and the needs as we go forward into the 2021-22 biennium.
Thank you. Representative Lucero.
Good afternoon, everybody. I look forward to this conversation. I look forward to carrying our priorities into next session. And I welcome, I guess I haven't looked closely enough here. So how many new board members do we have coming in next term?
We have two.
Two new board members. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, welcome to them. And I look forward to partnering with them as well as the existing board members to, again, advance our priorities in Wright County.
Thank you. Yes, one is joining us. So we'll be going through the introductions. So I'm just going down the list. So next we have Jamie Goodrum Schwartz.
Hello, everybody. I'm here to represent Health and Human Services. Good to see you or hear from you.
All right, Joe Pooler.
Hi, I'm Social Services Manager for Aging and Disabilities area in Health and Human Services. I'm just here with Jamie to represent our pieces.
All right, thank you. Representative Joe McDonald.
Hello, and welcome. Good to be with you all here virtually. I wait and anticipate the day that we can all be together as well, but very excited to be here, at least virtually, and read and listen and see what the priorities are that we can hopefully carry forward in the next biennium at the Capitol. So always good to be with the great people of Wright County.
Thank you. John Holler.
I'm the communications specialist for the county and no one of real consequence.
Hey, that's not true. Nobody's of unreal consequences there.
And then everyone, Frank made the announcement, not everyone maybe heard this, but when you're not to mute yourselves when you're not speaking. So thank you. All right, Administrator Lee Kelly.
Hi, everybody. Lee Kelly, County Administrator. Glad you can make it today.
Thank you. And Margaret Munson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Margaret Munson. I'm a probation officer at Wright County Court Services. I'm also the legislative chair for our Minnesota Association of County Probation Offices.
Thank you. Representative Marion O'Neill.
You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, I was rushing in. I'm in St. Paul in my office, which is an absolute disarray, and it's a little disconcerting to me. Apparently, they did some work in here, so I've been feverishly trying to put it back together. So I represent Buffalo, Monticello, Maple Lake, the townships of those names, and Silver Creek Township.
Okay, welcome. Mark DeLayden.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's sorry that we all have to be apart in this whole deal, but I appreciate you guys and gals coming to listen to what the Wright County has to offer to our residents. And hopefully we can come to some ways to help out our residents.
All right, thank you. Mary Wetter, Commissioner-elect.
Hi, I'm Mary Wetter, and I represent District 4, and very happy to be elected. I'm very excited to be a part of all this.
All right. Thank you. Mike McMillan, I think I can just see the top, the top of your name, but I think it's Mike McMillan, right?
It is. Mike McMillan, Director of the Wright County Court Services, which is the probation parole department for Wright County.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else on the list that is not showing up? There are? Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. We got a whole bunch of people. So next is Representative Paul Novotny.
Thank you for having me here, Paul Novotny. I represent the eastern part of Otsego and probably the smallest district represented in Wright County.
Right,
thank you.
Sean Johnson.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Johnson. I'm the HR Director for Wright County.
Thanks, Sean. Senator Andrew Matthews.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I am Senator Andrew Matthews. I represent Senate District 15, which has Clearwater and Clearwater Township in it. I apologize that I'm not going to be able to stay the whole meeting. I'm juggling several meetings, especially with work right now, trying to get caught up on that now that the election season is behind us. I do have my legislative assistant on the call to make sure I get all the notes and all the discussions from this meeting, but I did want to check in and say hi to everyone. Thank you to you local representatives for serving your communities. Congratulations to you newly elected members of the board. Thank you so much for serving, and I look forward to getting to know you better here during this upcoming term.
Thank you. Shane Zart.
Hello, yes, Shane Zart with the firm Flaherty and Hood and represent the county on a few of these priority issues at the Capitol. So happy to be here and look forward to continuing to work with everyone over the coming session.
Thank you. All right, and we did already introduce Sue Virgil Hawkins.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Virgil Hawkins, the county highway engineer, to address any transportation questions.
Thanks, Virgil. And then I've got someone remotely that their last two digits of their phone number is 92. Like to let us know. Anyone joining us remotely? All right, well, we've had two join us in person. So Representative Dean Erdahl, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we're kind of going down the list and everyone's kind of saying who they are. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Representative Dean Erdahl. I represent Meeker County, 3 townships in McLeod, and 1 township in Wright County.
And Commissioner Michael Potter. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Michael Potter, District 4, outgoing commissioner, Commissioner-elect Mary Wetter. Is she here today?
She is here.
Yeah, great,
yep.
Great. So let's just move on. Go for
All
it.
right, thank you. I really appreciate such a large group joining us, and that's one advantage of having the Teams or Zoom option, because we can get more people here that may not be able to work it into their schedules otherwise. So.
It looks like Representative Mecklin just joined us.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Shane Mecklin, would you like to introduce yourself?
I think I can hear me now.
We can pretty much hear you.
Shane, if you can hear us, you were very choppy when you were speaking for a split second there. And if you're talking now, we're not able to hear you.
Is it any better now?
Yes. Yep.
It's our dandy rural internet out here. I have to use my phone for a hotspot.
Ah. All right. Welcome. So everyone, if we've got with the bandwidth out here, our IT department has let us know that when you're not speaking, or if you turn your camera, your audio, and your visual off, that would be appreciated. So thank you. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started. Has everyone gotten a copy of Wright County's 2021 legislative priorities?
We have.
Yes.
Good. All right. So one of the top ones that we have, and other commissioners can speak to this also that have been very involved with this, is the driver vehicle services testing. And we know that with COVID, that like 64 different locations were closed, and it was already busy at all these testing stations. I think most of us can know somebody that has to go halfway across the state to get in to get tested. And now with COVID was kind of settling down, et cetera, then they were still saying that, looking at closing the Wright County site, and it was just open 2 days a week, correct? Or was it 3 days a week? It was only open part-time. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of our students had to go to another county to do their test. And now they're just looking at closing it down and sending all these people to Plymouth that was already overbooked. So that's been a real difficult thing for us, and we really are pushing and really hopeful that Wright County can maintain their vehicle services testing right here. And when we move to the government center next year, we're going to have, the drive up DMV available for our residents and things. And so it makes us even more hopeful that we can offer these services, continue these services for our residents.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Vetch.
So just the two pieces is one, we would be looking to see if one of you esteemed members here would be willing to sponsor a similar bill that was introduced in this last session about delegated authority to counties for road testing. In addition, we have some, I guess, movement in the decision on what is the timeline from DVS in the opening up of the more rural testing stations. They've kind of given us, there's supposed to be a phase 2 of that they've really kind of kept close to their chest, and it's kind of getting really dragged out. So, and then we also need to know what's the permanency of the future of road testing in Buffalo, in particular, because it has been a discussion point whether it is a potential for the chopping block. So that would be the direction we would be looking for aid on your part in this next session.
And if anyone would like to make a comment, please just raise your hand, and that way we know that you would like to speak. So we're not all talking at once. So Commissioner DeLayden, I see you have your hand up, and I see one other person does, but I can't see who it is.
It's Representative Lucero that has his hand up.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if you guys were aware of, but they did provide to our DMV office that they are going to allow us the option to do the written testing at our locations in the future if we want to. We have to opt into it. I was talking with Becky and her second in command down there. So I'm not sure of that at all or not.
I had not heard that. So thank you for getting that information. And Representative Lucero, you had a comment?
Yes, the bill that Commissioner Vetch just mentioned, I want to make sure if that was the bill that I had introduced per our conversation a year ago, actually. I see his head nodding there. So yes, absolutely, I do very much plan to reintroduce that because it is something that is desperately needed.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? And I see that our county surveyor, Steve Job, has also joined us. Welcome, Steve. And
Thank you.
yeah, and Keith Anderson.
Shane has his hand up. Madam
Okay,
Chair.
That's me.
all right, Shane, you have your hand up, and Commissioner Burrell has also joined us. I just can't see the whole list of people for some reason.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, I think I was just going to hop on and echo what Representative Lucero said, that there were a number of bills introduced to kind of get at the same subject. I think that one that didn't get as thorough a look as we might like, because I think it was a little different than some of the other concepts that were out there, was Representative Lucero's bill. So I think taking another run at that is good. Also, I think that I just wanted to emphasize that we have some statewide support in this. And when Wright County got involved and started asking questions about this issue, I think I heard nothing but overwhelming positive feedback, and even some gratefulness on the part of even some legislators saying, well, thank gosh, more local governments are speaking up about this. But, I think we, in the first special session back in June, partnered with communities as far out as Roseau, where the incoming mayor is familiar to a lot of the folks on the line. Representative Fabian is going to be the new mayor, soon to be former Representative Fabian will be the new mayor in Roseau. But Roseau, obviously, because of their location, was deeply impacted by this. So just wanted to emphasize that there are a lot of partners that are, I think, looking to work on this issue around the state. It's become a significant quality of life issue for greater Minnesota, and the more and more that folks take a look at it, and as the pandemic goes on and the backlogs aren't able to be tackled, the CDL issue is becoming, I think, a pressing workforce issue, is what we're finding as well. So there is some steam behind this. But also then just wanted to thank a few of the legislators on the line, and because there was some legislation passed in the second special session in July, and that's what started to enable some of the online testing for the written portion of the test. Didn't do much to get at the driver, the behind the wheel portion of testing, which is going to remain a significant issue. It was a little tougher, I think, and as it was definitely a pre-COVID issue, but got worse when COVID came along. But just for the commissioners on the line, anyone who is interested but hadn't heard this update yet, that legislation also included ordering a report from DVS to the legislature to be delivered by January 1st. So right before session gets rolling again, with an update on the backlogs, some information on where tests are being performed, where, how many tests, how significantly are we eating into this backlog. And that report, I think, will hopefully form the basis of some of the information that we take into session, and help lend some support to some of these proposals that come forward as well. So just those couple of things I wanted to add, and otherwise I'll turn the video off here.
Thank you, Shane. Yeah, that's good to know. And I mean, it's just a statewide issue. So something that we definitely want to keep in front of everyone going forward.
So this is Rep. Lucero again. So in addition to reintroducing the road test bill, I definitely would be interested if there is language out there. If somebody else has introduced a bill in regards to the CDL, as a former truck driver myself, as a former school bus driver, CDL, I'm very much also in favor of reducing any barriers that are in place because of that. Because just as the testing was a pre-existing condition when it came to the backlog pre-COVID, CDL shortage of commercial drivers was also a pre-COVID existing condition. So we definitely need to address that. So if there's any language, I definitely would be volunteering to assist. Then thirdly, just on the topic of quote unquote roads, my septic bill unfortunately continued to be stepped on by the chair of transportation in the House. So I will also be reintroducing that, of which Senator Anderson is the chief author in the Senate, and we just have to try to get past the roadblock in the House on that bill. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Senator Anderson, you'd like to comment?
Well, I would like to say that I would be glad to chief author those bills of Representative Lucero's in the Senate as we go forward into the next session, and hopefully get some progress that way. I hope there's enough fact that we've gotten 6 new seats in the House of Representatives that there's a little bit more pressure now going to come to the chairs of all the committees in the House, and that some of these bills will get a hearing and actually go forward. But we also have to remember that we are facing at least a 4.6, if not a $5 billion deficit. And I'm sure the governor is trying to find ways to trim his budget as much as possible. So as much as we want to go forward with some of these proposed legislation that are very good and should have been happening a long time ago, it's going to be a struggle as we get into the mix of things. So just wanted to give a heads up to let you know that I'm very much in support of it, and we'll push forward as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I've heard from a school bus company too, and there's huge barriers for those drivers, and we certainly need to keep our school bus drivers with their commercial licenses. So, anybody else have any comments? So I think, yeah, we had a pretty robust discussion about this last year. So we'll keep going forward.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for Senator Anderson. Get back on, I guess. First off, I want to thank you for sponsoring $4.5 million for Highway 55. It didn't make the final cut from what I saw. And I know that 1.8 billion was a lot of heartburn for people to support that. And some people did, but it's kind of perplexing with that big, but that 4.5 million got cut out at the end. And I'm trying to figure out how that did it and how do we, in the future, get that back in so it can move forward, because that's the important first step to get that construction on 55 out to Loretto.
So you're asking how that gets worked out? I was not a part of the final negotiations and that, not that that's an excuse, but didn't realize until after the fact that that had been taken out of the bill. So we'll just have to continue on, just like we do with a lot of legislation that I have sitting on my desk that never made the final cut in committees, conference committees, and getting to the floor. So not that it's not a bad project, Mike, but the thing is, there are things that happen unbeknownst to even us who are supposed to be in the knowledge and know of what's going on that takes place. And I apologize for not being pushing that far forward. I thought I had a clear route to get finalized.
Mr. Senator, you don't owe me or anybody else an apology. You did the work, you did the best you could. It just fell to the wayside. We're just hoping that in the future it can come back, being that that's the important first step to actually trying to get some construction money for that, because that's, as we know, shovel ready or whatever you want to call it. It's got to take that step first before we can apply for construction money. So again, thank you for your effort, and we just keep at it, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Was this trunk highway bonds?
Yep.
Well, of course, I am the lead on the bonding committee.
Okay.
And you can say 1.8 million or a billion. Keep in mind, general obligation bonds were 1.369.
Yeah.
So the 300 million that we put into trunk highway bonds, that's paid for by the gas tax. Now, MnDOT does not like earmarking in these projects, and so what we did 300 million trunk highway bonds, and the list of what projects are going to be done will be determined by MnDOT, and I think there's already an expectation of what is going to be done. I don't know the status of Highway 55 on that particular list, but a contact to Commissioner Anderson Kelleher advocating for this. You know, Senator Anderson, you could do that. I would advise calling her and ask what is the status of Highway 55 and what needs to be done to move that higher in their project list.
Thank you.
And Representative Erdahl, you know, with 7W, I sit on the committees this year, right? There seemed like a 14% reduction in revenue from the gas tax coming in. I know there's going to be a couple of hiccups for a couple of years here, so they're going to make some hard decisions. And you know, you always try to make it move forward because personal feeling is that federally, now that they've gotten whatever they wanted done out there, I think they're actually going to go forward with some kind of transportation plan now that they've been working on it and committed it to death the last 4 years. Because at the times they've been out there, you go to committee to die, right? And that's what they did, just committee the darn thing to death, so nothing gets done. But I think there's an appetite to do something on the federal level, and I just want to make sure Minnesota's ready to try to get some of that federal money over here again.
Right.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on driver vehicle services testing? If not, we will move on to the election funding and processing. And I guess we've all noted that there was quite a lot of attention to this election, and we had record number of citizens. Wright County also always has high voter turnout, but there is it 87,000 that voted in Wright County this term. John Holler, I think you have that information. Can I hear anyone? Anyway, so with
Sorry,
that,
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
I just apologize. I like everybody else forgot to unmute.
Okay, thank
I
you.
believe there were 87,000 people who voted in Wright County in this election, which is a 18% increase from 2016.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Madam Chair, if there's a couple of points and there's there's a variety of different topics on that sheet.
Yeah.
One of the ones that in particular that I wanted to point out is the multiple applications in different formats that were sent out to people across the state for absentee voting or for the mail-in balloting, which really made it confusing for the auditor treasurer's office because they're so vastly different, and really not having any kind of approval process through the Secretary of State's. I mean, I guess the state and most things that we do it's a single format state document form that everybody universally uses. Is kind of shocking that from an election standpoint, that wasn't the case.
So, yeah, do we just run through these?
I don't even know that we need to go through them all. I think
Yeah,
I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I just
Right.
want to point out some of the main key ones that were kind of interesting. And then the other one was I had a number of people reach out to me on the Track My Ballot, and the amount of times that people went into the Track My Ballot on Wednesday after the election and Thursday after the election, and they were still getting a message that says that their ballot was not counted, when in all actuality, when they would go on the back end through the county, through the SVRS system, it was actually counted. So we were fielding a number of phone calls because of some technical glitch, and it really heightened people's worries about the validity of the election system. And that's really something that we want to hold pretty sacred. So we need to make sure that those technical glitches no longer exist going forward.
Yeah, there's certainly county differences, and certainly, the metro counties might be different than the more rural counties and that kind of thing, but there has been a lot of angst with this whole election and hearing what's going on in other places. So, but some of the things that are on the list, and you can kind of drill into the details on this, but just to increase the window of time for direct balloting for early voting and additional days to process the envelope absentees. Allocate funds for upgrades or replacement of statewide voter registration system. eliminating county write-in votes for candidates for local office who did not file a request to have their write-in votes counted. Require Secretary of State approval of all absentee ballot applications provided by other agencies for form and content prior to distribution to voters, which kind of addressed. Voter education outreach, the presidential electors, and track my ballot, and we kind of, Commissioner Vetch did just mention that. So there's a 1.5 page supporting information about the elections funding processes. So if we have kind of time to look those over and digest and see what we can do to improve the process. So Representative McDonald, you had a comment?
Yeah, just a comment regarding that. I did have a couple of citizens in Delaware here contact me regarding track their vote, their ballot. And do we lead them to another to go track it again, Derek? Now that the supposedly if the glitch is over, or do we trust that their ballot was indeed successfully casted?
You know, and that, I mean, that's the thing is where I don't know where the glitch is between what the back end information says, yes, it was accepted, is what we find on the back end. It says it accepted. Now, on the track my ballot on the remote side at somebody's home, they were getting a response that says not counted. And I guess I mean, will we ever know the actuality of it, if it was counted or not? I mean, I like to assume so. I hope so. But that's where the big rub lies into it, because, you know, one person's saying yes, the other person's saying no. What really happened? These systems have to be in sync and in uniform so that it doesn't call into question the validity of it.
Yeah, there should be no question. It should be clear across county and to the state. So when people do that, they get the correct answer for sure. So Representative Lucero, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if I'm reading between the lines and some of the sentiment here, I'll say it more poignantly, and that is the confidence in a free and fair election has greatly been eroded, in my opinion, and the opinions of many hundreds actually that I've been hearing from. And so, yeah, I think what's happened here is very unfortunate in Minnesota, and people just do not have the confidence. And some of what we're talking about here, I think, is a direct contributor to that. And so I'm of the opinion, and many that I've been hearing from want to shrink the 46-day window pre-election. It's no longer a voting day, it's a voting season. And so one of the things that I'm going to be pushing forward is to shrink that window. I think it's ridiculous. But many of the other things that we've seen, the elimination of the witness signature, counting votes for 7 days afterwards without a postmark is absolutely ridiculous. And so we need to tighten the election law here in Minnesota, not loosen it. And so that's one of the things I'll be working on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, one more statement real quick, because I think as a county, we can be a huge asset to all of you because it's a nonpartisan perspective. And I really want to leverage that nonpartisan perspective in trying to stem some change. I guess any direction that you can give us in how we can aid that process forward would be greatly appreciated, whether it's information, testimonies, examples. I'm open for thoughts.
Thank you. There was someone's hand that went up before Marion's, but I can't see who it is.
I believe Joe McDonald did not lower his hand.
Okay, all right. Representative O'Neill, I think that perhaps Representative McDonald's hand is still up. Go ahead, Marion.
Thank you. So I wanted to point out another huge issue that happened in the city of Monticello. So there were 2,600 votes more on the Secretary of State website than actually were cast. And that appeared even on Thursday before the Friday day when they were canvassing. It was something that I raised as a concern to Jeff O'Neill and then to his staff and they immediately pulled the tapes and began to compare. And when we first started looking at this, the total votes cast for the city of Monticello were 9,300 and some. I can't remember the last two numbers, but it was 144% voter turnout. 144% voter turnout in the city of Monticello. So when we looked at the tapes, they were nowhere near what the Secretary of State was reporting. So I think one thing I'd like to learn is the exact process from the beginning to the final canvassing end on the whole process, because something went horribly awry. And I don't know if there's some opportunity for somebody to hand input information and they transcribe some numbers or transpose numbers or what exactly happened or added something twice. But some really significant human error or computer glitch or something must have happened. So for me, I'd like to know from beginning to end who does what, when, and why. And I know Representative Lucero also had 130% voter turnout in Albertville before the information was corrected. But that also does not bode well for voter confidence when they see things like that. So not quite sure what happened, but I know myself and probably Representative Lucero would really like to know the whole process from beginning to end, and where does it get passed off?
Yeah, thank you. Good, very good points. Did anyone else have a comment? I see a hand up.
John Holler.
John Holler?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I don't see anyone on the call from our Auditor Treasurer's office, but I was working closely with them in the months and weeks leading up to the primary and the general election. And I think that it should be on front of mind for our representatives and senators that it was the pandemic that basically caused our numbers to triple in terms of absentee and mail-in balloting. But the feeling that the Auditor Treasurer's Elections Office has, and many of their colleagues around the state, is that this is going to become the new normal, and that we should be expecting to see very high, if not half or more, even after the pandemic leaves, of instances where people are voting much more by mail-in and by absentee than they are in person.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's something that we've been hearing, so something that we need to keep focusing on and preparing for. We can be better prepared next time. All right, anyone have any more comments on elections funding and process? All right. So the next one on the list is Wright County supports continuing health and human services waivers and telehealth strategies that demonstrate administrative efficiencies and improve outcomes in service deliveries. Jamie, did you want to address?
Sure. I'll just say a couple of things, because I think this is one that's been probably fairly broadly promoted across many different organizations in Minnesota. My first comment, of course, even before the pandemic, there was legislation or proposed legislation to do more in health and human services via telehealth and virtually. I think a good point about this that we're asking to continue with some of the virtual visits that we've been doing is that in my mind, it's budget neutral. I don't think that this is a big hit to the Minnesota budget, since and potentially it could save some money, I think, on the state level. Of course, a lot of what we're talking about is windshield time. So we're reducing the amount of windshield time that staff use to travel to see their clients. And I don't think we're advocating that we don't see clients or see our customers anymore in person. But I think if post-pandemic, if we could use some of the efficiencies that we've seen demonstrated throughout the last few months to continue when it makes sense to do visits virtually, especially when clients are far away. We do have clients that reside in facilities in St. Louis County or other places, that if we can accommodate some of the required monthly mandated visits in a more streamlined manner and that it doesn't impact services, I think that would be great. We also understand that some people do have broadband issues, and this is not a resolution for that. Some of our population is very old or very young, so that might not also be the best solution. But we are seeing a lot of streamlining and efficiency, and I would say still quality visits coming through this. So we were asked to pick one priority out of several, and of course I was weighing this between our pandemic response, but I just thought this kind of came to the forefront. So I don't know if you have any questions. I also have Jill Pooler here that could answer any questions regarding waivered services.
Does anyone in the House or Senate have any questions or comments for Jamie? And for those of you that may have joined after introductions, Jamie Goodwin-Schwartz is our Health and Human Services Director. So, Representative O'Neill, you have a comment.
Yes, thank you. So Senator Anderson had alluded to this already, saying that we are probably facing a $5 billion deficit. With the actions that the governor is taking today to close down bars, restaurants, and fitness centers, we are going to see an even greater collapse of our economy. That is going to put thousands and thousands of people out of work. Again, our unemployment insurance trust fund is already bankrupt, and we've been borrowing money against some federal money that may or may not be there as of the beginning of September. So that fund is bankrupt. It had a 1.4 billion in it as a surplus before this all started. And now it is completely bankrupt, and we've been borrowing from it, or borrowing from the feds against it. So the other thing that's going to happen is, because of that, we'll probably have closer to a $9 or $10 billion deficit when we come back in January. When we get the February forecast, I fully expect it to be closer to 9 or 10 billion as a deficit. So how do you balance a $48 billion budget, which is where we are right now, given a $10 billion deficit? It's going to affect every single state agency. It has to. If all you did was drop 20% from every budget, you would theoretically get there. But anything that we can do to look at efficiencies and streamlining things, we need to start looking at it now. Even worse, best case scenario, we only are at a $5 billion deficit. That's still a 10% drop in funding across the board for state agencies. Very simple math. So I would recommend that we all start looking very carefully and closely at what can we do to increase efficiencies. And if telecommuting is one way, one step to get there, I'd recommend that. And just know that there won't be any additional money for anything, for schools, for HHS. There is no money. There is absolutely no money there. So I just wanted to state that. And we don't have the official word from the governor, but Star Tribune has been leaking stuff all day, basically saying he's going to, for the next 4 weeks, close bars and restaurants and fitness centers and only allow takeout. So that will essentially put a nail in the coffin of most of the small businesses that run, definitely in Wright County, that are small bars and restaurants and cafes and coffee shops. So unfortunately, that is where we find ourselves, and we're going to have to figure out a solution. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I thought I'd let you know that this is pretty big.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Yes. And this is.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I was just going to say I agree with Representative O'Neill, and I know other people in my position, 87 of us around the state, are kind of girding our loins in the Health and Human Services area as to what the fallout will be. We also know that most of our clients are the ones that are most heavily impacted, and are not yet but to be clients down the road will probably be accessing our services. So I think given the environment that we're seeing developing right now and what we anticipate, and I think we've done a really good job being efficient in the past. I think we're really going to have to double down on that, because I believe we'll be serving much like I was around back in the 2007, 2008, and we increased our public assistance caseload by 100%, and we didn't increase our staff. I mean, it was huge, and they were people that were never introduced into our systems before. So I'd anticipate we might see more of that. And so anything we can do to leverage our staff during the tidal wave that is coming, because not only is it the financial assistance, but the folks that we're talking about here receiving waivers with disabilities, people with mental health issues that I think we'll see escalating, chemical abuse and different things like that that we're seeing now on the rise. And then of course, public health and the continuing testing, and then the response to the distribution of to the vaccine that we're anticipating in Q1 and Q2 of next year, with the same staff that we were doing the same stuff with before, but now the rest of this. So we are understanding that we think we may be a target of some budget cuts coming up. I hope the legislature is cognizant of what we have that we're looking at that isn't even here yet, that we're anticipating coming. But you've got my assurance that we'll do what we can here to help the people of Wright County, move through this, regardless of where we end up. But this seems to me like a win-win. We're able to meet more people because we're not spending time in the cars traveling. And we are really getting the hang of having those quality conversations with people, even though it's virtual. It's not ideal, but I think it's one panacea until we can get to better times.
I just want to thank you, because I know that you've been through really difficult times, and you know what it looks like, and you've literally accomplished the impossible. And if we're talking about only a $5 billion deficit, I know that a particular chair of health and human services that I like to speak to says she could probably find $1 billion to cut out of HHS and not cause a whole lot of pain and angst. But beyond that, there's going to be great pain. And so it's going to be a shared pain, unfortunately. We're going to have to get really creative at doing more with less, and across the board of government. Thank you for what you're doing, and hopefully others are listening to you about how to do the most with what you've got.
Yeah, and I would just say one last thing. As much as at the state level and the commissioner level at the state, as much as I can bring counties in the conversation, because I think we have a lot of good ideas, and we're not always at the table when some of the decisions are being made. So as much as counties can inform state government, I think would really help too.
And thank you. One thing that came up, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, is the fact that our Health and Human Services folks all of a sudden they'll get these 20 new rules. They did not come from the legislature. They came from the different committees. And so all of a sudden they're sent and they have to abide by these 20 new rules. Well, I think that's got to change, because those kinds of important things have a huge impact. I mean, they're kind of like mandates, and they're supposed to follow them. And the legislatures, Senate and the House haven't seen any of this stuff. So I think that all of those things need to be approved by the legislature before they just send them out to the counties and say, you need to do it this way now. And we showed you, maybe that was 2 years ago, all the different screens that when a client has a change of circumstance, they have to go through 20 different screens or more to change that. And so there's some things that talk about efficiencies that could be captured, and that's one of them. So anyway, thank you both. Representative McDonald, did you have your hand up? I can only see a hand up, but I can't see who it is.
I did, thank you. A question for Jamie, and regarding Health and Human Services. Just if you could give a little quick brief update on any maybe mental health crisis that we've experienced from the first lockdown, what you've seen in the last couple of months, and what do you anticipate maybe going forward if the governor continues to lock things down and close things up?
Yeah, thank you, Representative O'Donnell. I have mostly just anecdotally. I would say we're seeing an increase in our existing cases and the escalation of some people's, mental health. So I'm not sure I haven't really seen any stats coming through as far as, statewide and things like that. So I would just say anecdotally, we anticipate a lot of, again, more escalated behaviors and escalated existing clients, not to mention the folks that may find their way into our agency in the coming days. We are currently working, and we feel like things like, sustainable housing and things that we can actually help people so they, regardless of their mental health status, how we can help, have them be self-sufficient and work through some of these issues. We're trying to do our best in that area as we're bringing somebody on board to work with some housing issues. We've got somebody working in the jail that as people get left, out of jail, how they can be better integrated back into society with, hopefully working through some of the mental health issues that they have. So I think it's going to be kind of a see what comes next. Like I mentioned before, I think we're kind of doubling down on being prepared, but I can't really tell you what that looks like other than we're anticipating it. And I do have Jill Pooler on the line who works with the adult mental health group in our county. So Jill, would you have anything to add to Joe's question?
The only thing I would add is that I too don't have specific stats in hand, but we definitely saw a rise in commitments or continuation of commitments for folks with significant mental health needs in the last few months. And then some of our numbers have steadied out a bit, but the needs are definitely higher. I would say we've had a lot more crisis management in our adult mental health and children's mental health worlds. And then just kind of our overall feeling of all our case managers, it just is a definite spike in everyone's stress levels. And then of course, that's when you see more crises coming into light. And so going back kind of to tie this back to our ask for the legislative proposal, being able to meet those clients' needs in a variety of different ways, whether that's in person with safety protocols in place or video or phone, that's just a huge way to reduce barriers for clients who feel really unsafe right now. So our folks with mental health concerns, some with extreme paranoia don't want to see anybody face to face, or sometimes they really need that. And we need that flexibility to be able to meet their needs where they are. And like Jamie said, it also really brings some efficiency for our staff to be able to accommodate their workloads that are ever changing these days.
And I would say I was at a safe school meeting recently, and Leander, one of our, I think he's a deputy with our sheriff's department, was talking about how escalated parents are in responding to schools and what the schools are dealing with right now. So we also support the schools in their response to the crisis and what is actually not only just a COVID crisis, just the educational crisis of kids doing distance learning and what that means to families and how that it just all plays into each other. So we've got our work cut out for us. We hope that we're, able to stand the ground.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good, very much.
Representative O'Neill, you had a comment?
Did you say me? Just really quickly, a week and a half ago, my next door neighbor committed suicide. That caused me to have conversations with our sheriff yet again about that in the county. And the 2 weeks prior to that suicide, there were a total of 6 suicides in 2 weeks in Wright County alone. And he saw an escalation, significant escalation. I didn't have the exact numbers, but crisis is abounding all around us, and in fact, right next door to me. So,
in the last
watch out for each other.
In the last year and a half, we've been working with emergency services and with Central Minnesota Mental Health Center on our mobile crisis unit. The issue is, they need to have the crisis call for us to intervene before that unfortunate event happens, the suicide happens. But we've been, I would say, we've been focusing on getting our mobile crisis unit inside there along with law enforcement, so things can be de-escalated sooner. And we're seeing some progress in that area.
Representative McDonald, would you have another comment?
No, Jamie answered it. My second question was going to be that of the schools and if the counselors were reaching out to them. So I believe, Jamie, you answered that unless you have anything further to add on that.
No, you should all be aware, especially maybe our new commissioner, that we have a safe schools community, and several of the people from the county that are on the call today are part of the safe school community. And we meet with all of our school districts monthly. We've been doing it virtually now, but we have law enforcement. We are there, public health is there, court services. county attorney. We have all kinds of folks there working with the schools hand in hand, looking to see how we can work through these issues. And we were there before the pandemic, but now it's really a tool that I think we can use and mobilize now as families and educators move into more of a crisis mode.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, our fourth legislative priority, and I guess we've kind of talked about the fact that there might not be extra monies this year, but we're definitely looking maybe for some kind of a shift because of the aquatic invasive species funding. We're experiencing more and more aquatic invasive species we have 300 lakes in Wright County, and we're working with Wright County Soil and Water to protect the lakes, but a lot of the funds are used for inspection, decontamination, education. But as the needs continue to increase, the funding for AIS has been flat for some years. So that's just something, if do you have anything to add on that? Commissioner Batch, or?
It's just something more cognizant. It's not necessarily an issue, obviously, in the burning light of the issues that you guys will be facing in this session. Definitely probably a lower priority, especially in light of the fact that we'll be in a deficit. But it's just something that when the opportunity comes to shift some of our natural resource funding, I think it's something that we have to entertain, just because that flat dollar amount that we're using for a variety of, whether it's from educational to treatment to prevention, the purchasing power of that money has been diluted down so much over the past 2 decades, with it being as flat as it's been.
Sometimes I know it's, DNR a lot, but, looking at, is that the most efficient ways to use the monies that are being spent? And I think that, as Commissioner Betch alluded to, certainly prevention, I think, is at least as important as enforcement. So,
Christine?
Yes.
Yes, and certainly we recognize the importance of putting money into EIS. For our tourism industry and for recreation, it's a big deal. But as has already been implied to you, with the deficit that we're facing, an increase probably isn't very likely. And frankly, you're lucky to keep what you have now. But that's just the lay of the land right now. And in the future, when we get through this, we recognize the importance of AIS funding.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And that's a reasonable statement.
Yeah, we understand that completely. So, Senator Anderson.
Well, thank you, Christine. I appreciate the issue, because as you know, and your county board has already agreed to allow some of the lakes in the western part of Wright County to use their volunteers to help in this effort of AIS, and yet we get a big pushback by the bureaucracy of the Department of Natural Resources. I'm wondering, from the vantage point of Wright County Soil and Water Conservation, what kind of relationship do you have with the DNR, and do you find any equitable, or I should say amenable type of relationship whereby the DNR is actually involved with this issue, or are they just kind of, to me, it's a very flimsy attitude that they have towards AIS, and they really don't, as much as they say they do, don't really want the Wright County or any county involved in this particular issue. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's up and down. I mean, it was very frustrating when Starry Stonework was found in Lake Sylvia, and of course that's one of the worst of the worst. And the DNR would not shut down the public access because they just wouldn't. I mean, it wasn't posted, wasn't anything. So that maybe started a little bit of a, I don't know, some headbutting more with us and the DNR, and certainly trying to get the regional inspection site, or we had it going for a couple of years. But they, even though it was their idea back in 2007 or 8, once we implemented it, then it was no longer a good idea. But anyway, I got Mary Wetter.
so we can start to match that up and actually know what's in there?
Well, as members of the SWCD and on that board, I would say yes, DNR, exactly what you said, Chris. The DNR is looking out for their own budget and stuff like that. They cut budgets just like everything else. In fact, they, as an example, they cut the funding on where they put the mini buffs in on a lot of the lakes where inspections are being done. And so the SWCD had to come up with that money to put mini buffs there strictly because the people that were doing the inspections, part of the contract was that should be provided for them. So I would say the DNR is watching out for themselves, and they have kind of put that issue to the side. Sarah Strauman, who's the head, I knew her from when she worked with Bowser, and I think she understands the problems that SWCDs have, but I don't think she's listening. She's probably so much pressure on them from the fishing aspect and the recreational aspect that you would think, and the hunting aspect that I think AIS is sort of left to the side. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? I see,
Madam Chair.
Yep, Commissioner Potts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Sarah Stroman knows what's going on, just chooses not to because of pressure. Landwehr before her, I scratched my head about him, what he was doing. I was at a Senate hearing on this AIS with Senator Engelbrecht, and we was talking, and I called out Bob Meyer as the man behind the curtain, and oh boy, was he mad at me. And the thing is our little disagreement or fight, or what we're going to call it, DNR, started when we said we were going to take care of ditches because they're going through that public waters and they're going through all these positioning, whatever, and they didn't know what we were doing. But Bob Myers is the one that's the man behind the curtain he's the one kind of running the show back there from what I see, from my point of view.
Yeah. Exactly. Senator Anderson.
Well, I think Mary Wetter hit it on the head when she said the big fishing organizations and the big hunting organizations are the people behind the curtain that are putting big money or talking with big money and lawyers to stop the DNR from going forward to help this issue of AIS. And I know I've got a neighbor just 5 houses down who basically called me a traitor to the fishing organizations and the hunting organizations in wanting to allow the volunteers on Lake Sylvia, Pleasant Lake, Lake John, whatever, to go forward with monitoring AIS and trying to stop this growth in the AIS in their lakes. And so these people who have invested lots of dollars in these behind the curtain organizations are basically telling the DNR, you better not do anything with it. So it's bigger than just the DNR. I think it's those people behind it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Joe, did you have another comment? All right. We have some additional legislative items, a few. Actually, like 5.
I think those ones were just for
kind of just for.
We weren't going to go through them all.
No, we're right. So if anyone has anything they'd like to, just glancing down the sheet, if you want, is there anything that you wanted to address or ask questions about? But basically it's some things that we're looking at, we'd like to see, but.
Madam Chair,
yes.
Can I just make a quick statement? I just want to thank all of you that are on this call. You've all been very, very dedicated hard workers for Wright County citizens. Being able to accomplish that bonding bill and to be able to move forward a lot of legislation that maybe did not get passed, but got a lot of forefront of attention, especially in light of this pandemic that we're enduring. I can't thank you guys enough. I appreciate all the efforts, and I know that you guys will go to bat for all the citizens of Wright County all the time.
Yeah.
So
I echo that, and I really appreciate that we've been able to meet in the last few years and to tell you our concerns, and also to hear kind of what's happening at your level. And we've met you a few times down at the Capitol too, and had some good discussions. So it's good to have this relationship. Anyone else have any comments?
When is your dental clinic going to be?
Well, we're moving into the government center next, hopefully September.
The dental won't open until probably second quarter of 2022.
Right, so it's not gonna be right away. Community dental care, we'll need to get it equipped, and so it's not really a Wright County, but they're leasing the space from Wright County.
Estimated target probably second quarter of 2022.
So maybe around January.
Oh, no. April, somewhere between that, around that April, May of 2022.
Okay.
That's more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're initially talking about 3 months, but yeah, it's probably more realistic to say 6.
Well, we're happy that we could include some funding.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, that's huge, so that was a really, it's a boon to all those people that are needing dental care that can't get it. And in fact, I was at a state or public health meeting, and when that subject came up, there was doctors, and they said, oh, that is so wonderful, because people's health, a lot of it depends on their dental health. So that was good. Anything else that anyone would like to add before we say goodbye to everyone for now? And thank you so much for joining us again. See you next time.